Hi, welcome back. Hope you've been studying this. Last time I mentioned that the passage in 24 of Matthew, especially near the end of it or something of his predictions, he talks about the coming. The question is he talking about the first century or nowadays, the modern time when he comes back? It's possible that it's both. There seems to be that type of double prophecies in one prophecy through the Old Testament and maybe even in the New. So, or he was mainly talking about this. In my opinion, there's a coming of judgment that was coming on the fall of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was going to fall. But I think there's definite, or I shouldn't say definite, seems that there are definite indications that he's also talking about the real future, way in the future. So let's go on. Well, don't go on. Remember, he just mentioned the days of Noah. People are just going through their normal, regular lives and schedule, and they're not thinking about Noah's warnings, God's warnings through Noah about the flood coming. So they just didn't pay any attention to that. That's what Jesus is bringing up, and the fact that in Noah's time that happened, and nowadays, as it is in the days of Noah. Then he talks about that nobody knows the day or hour. He repeats that. In verse 40 he says, "Then shall two be in the field, and one shall be taken, and the other left." So one's going to be taken, one is going to be left there. They're out in the field working, a lot of servants or even the owners or the people, the children and all of the owners, and they're working on the fields. One person is going to be taken, the other left. Now the question is it Jesus Christ coming to take the righteous first or the sinner, the person who doesn't know God? My guess is probably the second one, the wicked, but I'm not sure. It could be either or is the point. However, in Matthew 13, I remember the parable when it talks about the angels are going to collect the ones who are evil, and throw them into fire. And then the others is going to be in his proverbial barn. But here it is. What is Jesus going to do? He comes back and he takes one and leaves the other. He mentions two different parables, two different stories here. One is in the fields working. The second one he mentions is at the mill, the grind mill, the grindstoning. There's two stones, one on top of the other, and you put the grain in between it. And on the top of the about 2.5 inch, 18 inches, like a saucer plate, 2.5 feet or 18 inches of the stone. There has a handle on it on top, and a lot of times on the other side of the stone. Now, a lot of times two people did it once. So it was helpful to how you could do one hand and the other person's doing the other. Or if you're by yourself, you have to do it by yourself. But that's quite a bit, of grinding, and you're grinding wheat, grain, things like that. And so a lot of times, this is very popular, almost probably every house had this, a small mill, which is a stone and another stone. If you remember, I've discussed this before, and they put grain in there and they crush the grain so they can bake bread. And so Jesus said two women will be at the mill, kind of a household item, like a blender that we have in our houses or something. And very popular. Now, there was a community mill, and that took an animal to have to walk, like a donkey or something like that, where the larger mill was in another place, and it had a beast who was power and strength to walk around. In this case, it's at home. One will be there, and one will be taken, one will be left. And so that's why he says, "Then shall two be in the field," and then he says, "Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, the other left." And then he says, "Watch therefore." His main reason here of saying all this is that it's going to be sudden. You're not going to expect it. You're minding your own business, you're doing your own work, and all of a sudden Jesus Christ, the judge of the world, comes, and he comes back. Now, is this during the first century, or is this yet to come? Okay, well, I tend to think it's the first century, and it could be doubled, like I said. But he's saying that you need to be ready, because the armies of Jerusalem, or the armies of Rome are going to surround Jerusalem. and they're going to take one person prisoner or kill one or whatever. So you need to be ready. Or it could be literally Jesus coming back and snatching them right into himself. No, it's very possible. So the big thing here is watch. That means be alert, be awake, be ready. And Jesus Christ will come either way, and you need to be ready to meet him. And so he says, watch therefore, for you don't know the hour, you don't know what hour the Lord will come. So here's all these people out in the fields, or maybe they're grinding and all. And the ones that are in the red represent God's people, because they're washed in the blood, the red blood of Jesus. So Jesus comes, and he could take all these first and leave that the Christian for right now. I'll take the Christians. He snatches him, he pulls up, he takes them. This little girl made it there. Of course, a baby did. Whoops, I didn't hack this other day. And here's another baby, and then here's a little girl, and then sees there Jesus is taking them up. And notice there's not as many red here. Few will be saved, Jesus said. And, oh, I don't want to forget this little guy right here. He's waiting. Bam. All these people be left. It could be that way, in that order, where Jesus Christ takes the Christian first in the end of times. And so it's prepare, be wise, be ready, watchful. And that watch really doesn't necessarily looking for, well, it is a looking for, but it's more of a watchman who does continually watching on the walls of a city, way out in the mountains or the field away from the city, to see if the enemy is starting to come. It's constant watch. And that's what we need to be, constantly watching for the return of Jesus, by the way. And so that's what he's saying. Watch, therefore. You don't know when he's going to come. So you don't want to fall asleep spiritually. Just kind of like this, doze off, and all of a sudden he comes and you're not ready. So, and the parable coming up in Matthew 25, that's a big one. It has that same feeling, that same point, that be watchful, prepare yourself, be ready. All right, thanks for listening.